At this moment, in former President Trump's New York criminal trial, the defense has just wrapped up its opening statements to the jury. The nation's 45th president, his lead attorney, Todd Blanche, told jurors the former president is innocent. He claims Trump committed no crimes, and Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg should never have brought this trial. On the other side, prosecutors call the case election fraud and a full-blown criminal conspiracy. Here's a taste.
These are all Biden trials. This is done as election interference. Everybody knows it. I'm here instead of being able to be in Pennsylvania and Georgia and lots of other places campaigning. And it's very unfair. This is a witch hunt, and it's a shame. And it comes out of Washington. It's in coordination with Washington, everything, including the DA's office. It's in coordination with Washington. I just want people to understand that this is done for purposes of hurting the opponent of the worst president in the history of our country.
You're watching Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner, here with my co-hosts Emily Compagno and Kayleigh McEnany. Also joining us today, Fox News contributor and The Federalist editor-in-chief Molly Hemingway, and Fox News contributor and retired U.S. Marine bomb tech Joey Jones. Welcome them both. Let's go straight to our correspondent Eric Shawn, who's outside the New York State U.S. Supreme Court. So a big day for Trump in court. A lot to catch us up on, Eric.
Yeah, Harris, this morning here at New York State Supreme Court, the defense was blunt. It is Michael Cohen who is the criminal. They said Michael Cohen wants to see President Trump go to prison. But the prosecution said it was former President Trump who broke the law. In court, the defendant sat quietly at the defense table. At times, former President Trump shook his head in objection to what he was hearing, as prosecutor Matthew Colangelo told the hushed courtroom that Trump orchestrated an illegal plan to corrupt the 2016 presidential election. Colangelo said, quote, "This case is about a criminal conspiracy and a cover-up. It was election fraud, pure and simple." He said David Pecker, the former publisher of the National Enquirer, who is expected to be the first witness, will detail how the illegal scheme worked and what he and Trump did talk about to buy the silence of former Playboy playmate Karen McDougal. Pecker, he said, will detail how Trump desperately wanted to hide his affair with her, which is why the tabloid paid for McDougal's story but never ran it. As for Stormy Daniels, Colangelo said Trump reimbursed his lawyer, Michael Cohen, to pay her money and promised the jury they will hear a tape of Trump talking about paying cash. He said the three men, Trump, Pecker, and Cohen, conspired together to suppress negative news that could hurt Trump's presidential campaign. But then Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, had his turn, responding to what he heard by saying the story you just heard, you will learn, is not true. He told the jury, quote, "President Trump is innocent. President Trump did not commit any crimes. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office should never have brought this trial. You will find he is not guilty." He also said those checks that the former president signed that went to Cohen were to pay for Cohen's legal fees, calling his client a frugal businessman, saying this was not a payback. He said Trump just signed the checks. He was trying to protect his family, his reputation, and his brand. We likely could hear some of David Pecker's testimony in the next few moments, though the trial will break early today in just about a half hour from now because one of the alternate jurors has to go to the dentist. But certainly we will hear, we believe, David Pecker explain all of this tomorrow as this first trial, criminal trial of a former president has now begun. Harris, back to you.
Eric Shawn, thank you very much. Emily, I come to you on this. So there's a lot to unpack today, but one of the big breaking news points just a few minutes ago in the election fraud case with the $175 million bond that was put up, Letitia James got her plate handed to her. The judge upheld that bond. And I just want to talk about when Trump has a victory, what does it mean for all these other cases? Because it seems like people are kind of watching, well, they'll poke the bear in one case. Does it seem that way or is it that way?
Right. I think the answer to your question is what the American public, how they feel and accept and sort of process and synthesize all of these events and decisions and hearing outcomes. But at the end of the day, the jury is prevented from seeing all of that in some of these, right? So the reality in terms of how it impacts a potential conviction Well, that depends on what the jury itself sees. I want to focus for a moment, however, if I may, on the defense's opening statements today. Super important. They came out swinging. They said President Trump is innocent. They said he has not committed a crime. They said the Manhattan District Attorney's Office should never have brought this trial. And then they went on to say, look, the 34 counts are just 34 pieces of paper. They went through exactly what the DA is arguing, flipped it over and said, why would a frugal businessman pay $420,000 on $130,000 debt? This is just President Trump's name on it. They said he was just responsible for signing the checks. It was actually Cohen in charge of the ledger, and they sort of debunked and went through exactly the allegations. And they said, by the way, hush money is not illegal. And then they went and spent a serious amount of time totally impugning Cohen for the serial perjurer that he is. They poked so many holes in his credibility, and so it remains to be seen what happens next.
All right, we have some breaking news, and we want to go to that. I'm going to ask my team to kind of walk us through this a little bit because I was listening to you. David Pecker is our first witness today, and he is taking the stand right now. And we aren't going to show it, but we do know we have producers in the stand. So as we were wrapping out of that, Emily, forgive me, I started listening to this. And why that matters is because last hour, what I learned from a former federal prosecutor, Kayleigh, is that you've got a couple of liars that are witnesses in this case. Michael Cohen being one, David Pecker, according to my guest, Andrew Cherkasky, also one of those liars on the stand. So we're going to watch a person who was accused of doing that catch and kill, where you get a negative story during a campaign and you pay somebody some money to speak about it, and then you never publish that story.
Yeah, and, potentially hearing from Michael Avenatti, who is a less than sterling reputation as he's serving. I think it's a 12-year sentence, whatever it may be. So a lot of characters. But, as you were saying that, and as I'm watching this reporting, it just occurred to me, the Democrats thought that this would admire Trump in negative coverage, negative news cycles, a salacious story that people could grab onto. But we're just hearing what David Pecker said via a reporter. We will just hear what any of these witnesses say, Michael Cohen via a reporter. But who do we hear from? We hear from Donald Trump. He looks strong. He is out there. He is confident. His opponent is sitting in a basement somewhere, a metaphorical basement. He is hidden away. Trump is driving the narrative on this, and he's been very on message. I should be in North Carolina. I should be in South Carolina, et cetera. And I wonder if Democrats are having a moment where they're reflecting and wondering if this was the wrong way to go. Gavin Newsom came out and said this: when we are focusing on Trump, I do worry electorally as a slight advantage, and I'm a little concerned about the overindulgence about this day to day. That's Gavin Newsom. I think this could backfire. You get one disruptor on the jury, you get a hung jury. That's a tailwind behind Trump politically.
So, Joey, what I was thinking about as we've been reporting all day, to make Kayleigh's point even further, is the public, and Emily said this too, the public hears this, that the cauldron of politics is outside the courtroom. But that's the place where Biden wants to win. I don't even know if he's really keeping up so much with these cases. But what he wants to do is say, look at me, I'm in Pennsylvania for the 5th day or whatever it is. And so he's making the rounds, yet he's talking about Trump while he's doing that. And then Trump's talking, about himself in the course. I mean, Trump, 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 Trump. And by the way, all those networks, Trump, 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 Trump. So he wins, and it may be negative, but my mom used to say, just spell my name right.
Well, the part of the problem here is Trump doesn't get to talk about this. That's actually a big problem. People can hear what David Pecker has to say or hear what Cohen has to say, but they can't hear what Trump has to say about their testimony. They can't hear what Trump has to say about what the truth in his eyes is on this case. And I think that is the biggest action they're taking against him, because they know that he's going to win the war of PR if he has a chance to talk. And it's not because he's never done anything wrong. It's not because he's never done anything maybe untowards that he needed someone to sign an NDA for. It's because all of those things are baked into who he is back in 2015 when people made the decision the first time. And those people aren't changing their minds because you're relitigating something that happened that long ago and trying to find a place where it could have maybe been illegal, and maybe you can convince a jury from Manhattan to believe that. So if we look at the presidential politics of it, I don't think it hurts him at all. If anything, it helps him, just like Kayleigh was saying. The problem is, does it get a hung jury? Does he have to go back for another 6 weeks? Can they keep him off the campaign trail enough that he can't go and raise money? I think he can get the votes. I think he can keep the votes around and the support, but he has to be able to raise money to have a staff, to have a campaign. And if they can keep him away from that, that's the bigger issue here.
So the hung jury, though, I mean, if we get too close to the election, no, we wouldn't necessarily see that play out before November. But Molly, You know, I do find it interesting. There is maybe for the former president, from his perspective, a silver lining. Because, no, he doesn't get to talk about these cases. I mean, it's gag order after gag order on Trump on the cases. But he does get to talk about what the American people are facing. And Joe Biden doesn't want to do that. So it's kind of ironic. Like, we see more of Biden in Pennsylvania. We don't see Trump, but we see Trump talking about what affects people in Pennsylvania and across the country.
Yeah, former President Trump has done a good job of dealing with this situation. He is out there talking about issues. He's figuring out a way to campaign, despite the fact that his travel is limited and his speech is completely limited. But I don't think that we should overlook how serious this situation is and how awful it is just because he and his campaign are handling it well. This is a show trial. It's one of a series of show trials being brought by completely partisan actors. It's in front of a judge who really should have recused himself. And it's with a jury that's picked from Manhattan. You know, it's a 90% Democrat town. The whole point is to secure a quick and easy conviction. When these charges were filed, everybody agreed that they were totally ridiculous. There's no crime here. And yet here we are going through this. It's a cost of money. It's a cost of time. And it really does show the effectiveness of what Democrats are doing. And just to point out, too, it's like really closely connected to Biden. Biden's former number 3 guy at DOJ was the one who made the opening statement today. That's how closely connected it is to the Biden administration. And so this is part of a large campaign. It's really serious. And I think Americans, even if they're thankful that maybe the American people aren't falling for it, they really should understand how serious this is to rule of law and what it means to be in this country and not to deal with our political opponents in this manner.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd ever quote ESPN's Stephen A. Smith on this, but he's right when he says, are you doing this because you can't take a man on based on the merits on the job? Do you have to go after? I'm paraphrasing Stephen A. a bit here.
And the answer is yes.
And the answer is yes, which was the point he made in his YouTube video.